Hey guys, so today I'm here with the Barricade rear bumper and tire carrier fitting all 1987 to 2006 YJ and TJ Wranglers. So this is going to be for the YJ or the TJ owner who's looking to add some functionality to the rear end of their Wrangler at a very affordable price point. So this rear bumper and tire carrier setup is going to add a lot of utility to the rear end of your Jeep, including full rear end protection, and you're also getting a couple of recovery points, including these D-ring mounts and even a standard hitch receiver. So this is perfect for somebody who's taking their Jeep out on the trail, wants that insurance that the rear end of their Wrangler is going to be protected, and they have a couple of recovery points in case they get into a sticky situation. So not only is this going to add a lot of utility to the back end of your Wrangler, this is also going to be for those YJ and TJ owners who are looking to upgrade in their tire size, and they're looking for something a little bit stronger than the factory setup as far as the spare tire carrier mount goes. So this is going to take all of that extra weight that would be put on the tailgate and moving it to a bumper mounted system that is going to be a lot more solid and a lot more durable overall. So this option over the factory option is going to preserve the life of your tailgate, making this a great choice to take a look at. So not only is it just going to bring function to the table, this is also going to give you a very off-road and aggressive look to the rear end of your Wrangler that you may be looking for. Now, as far as price goes, this is going to be pretty affordable, like I mentioned before, roughly $400, making this one of your most affordable options for a rear tire carrier and a rear bumper combo. Now, in comparison to other choices on the page, this is going to be a very simplistic option. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles to it, and I really like that because it keeps it simple, it's still user-friendly, and it still brings a lot of function to the table that you would want out of a rear bumper and tire carrier setup. Now, those other more expensive options that you may be taking a look at, those are usually going to have a couple more bells and whistles to them, like accessory mounting points. They may include lights, or they may be for single action tire carriers. However, like I mentioned before, if you're looking for something very affordable, if you're looking for a no-fuss tire carrier that's going to get the job done all around, this is going to be a really good option to take a look at. So install is going to be a 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. You're going to need a couple of basic hand tools and probably a couple hours worth of your time. So speaking of the install, let's jump into that now. Tools I used for this install were an impact wrench, a body saw, 3/8" drive ratchet, a 19mm, 18mm, 17mm open-ended or box wrench, a pair of safety glasses, a 13/16" deep socket, a 19mm, 18mm, 17mm, and 13mm shallow socket, a 10mm deep socket, and a 6mm Allen socket. So our first step is to take off our spare tire. Now the tool or the socket that you'll need is going to depend on the lug nut size, but I'm going to use a 13/16" socket in my impact wrench to take off the 3 lug nuts that are holding on our spare. So we're going to start this off with our rear bumper, and our first thing that we have to do is take off these plastic end caps so we can access the bolts behind our frame here. So there are going to be 2 10mm bolts up top and then 1 on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and remove the top ones with a 10mm socket. And then we can take off the bottom one with the same 10mm socket. And then after those 3 are removed, we can just slide the plastic end cap out. And we can do the same thing on the other side. So our next step is to remove the 2 nuts on the studs that are holding in our bumper to our frame here. I'm going to use a 19mm socket for the bottom one. However, you will have to use an open-ended 19mm wrench for the top one because your body mount is right here. All right, so once that hardware is off of there, then we can move to the bottom bolt on the underside of our frame. So I'm going to use the same 19mm socket to remove the bolt down on the bottom. And then we can repeat that process on the other side. So because our exhaust is so close here, we do not actually have a bolt down there, but after the bolt is removed on your Wrangler, what we can do is remove our rear bumper. So our next step is to remove our spare tire carrier. So it's held in by 5 bolts, 3 on the top and 2 on the bottom. I'm gonna use a 13mm socket in my impact as well as a 3/8 inch drive hand ratchet in order to remove those bolts. So with the last bolt, the whole spare tire carrier will come off, so make sure you have a good grip on it. So before we go ahead and install our new Barricade rear bumper, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about it and how it's going to benefit your TJ or YJ in comparison to your factory setup. Now, as you can tell, your factory setup is very plain in comparison to the new Barricade rear bumper. Now, the new Barricade rear bumper is going to have a couple of D-ring mounts. Those are going to be perfect as recovery points while you're out on the trail. And you're also getting a standard 2-inch hitch receiver as well that is also perfect for recovery. Now, this is not going to be tow rated, but it is going to be perfect for recovery like I just mentioned, and it's also going to be perfect for any hitch mounted accessories. So this is also going to be a lot more durable than your factory rear bumper. Your factory rear bumper is made of a thinner steel material. However, this new one by Barricade is made of a 3/16 inch plated steel, and it's going to protect the rear end of your Wrangler a little bit better than the factory one. And it's also going to have a nice texture black powder coat finish on top of that steel, and that's going to do a great job at protecting that steel underneath, but also it's going to do a great job at creating an aggressive and off-road look to the rear end of your YJ or TJ. Now, this is also going to have a spare tire carrier that comes with it. However, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in comparison to the factory spare tire carrier once we get to it. So enough about these two side by side. Let's go ahead and mount up our new rear bumper. So for this next step, I would recommend to grab a friend because we are going to be mounting up our rear bumper. And you also want to make sure that you have your hardware staged, which is your bolts, 2 flat washers, and your nylon lock nut. And we're going to secure the rear bumper up against the same factory mounting location. So after you have 1 bolt in on either side, what we can do now is secure the rest of them down since this will be in place. And we're going to do the same factory mounting locations. So the top bolt might be a little bit tricky because of that body mount. So after you have the 2 bolts in on the side of the frame, what we can do is head to the underside of the frame, and we're going to take the same bolt but with 1 flat washer and thread that into the nutsert that is inside of our frame here. All right, so once that's in place, what we can do is thread in the other side, then we can go back and tighten everything down. So after we have everything threaded in, what we can do is tighten up all of the bolts. Now they're all going to be an 18mm, the bolt head and the nut. So I'm going to use an 18mm socket to tighten down the bottom bolt here first. And then we can tighten up the top too. So with an 18mm wrench holding the bolt head, we can tighten down the nut with that same 18mm socket. So for the top bolt, we will have to switch just because there is that body mount in the way. So we can do the same thing for the other side. So just like I did with the rear bumpers, I wanted to sit the new spare tire carrier on the table next to your factory one and tell you guys a little bit more about the benefits that you're getting with this new one over your factory setup. Now right off the bat, this is going to be very durable over the factory setup, just like the rear bumper setup. So this is made of a 3/16 inch plated steel, just like the rear bumper. It's also going to have that textured black powder coat finish on top, which is going to provide more of an aggressive look to the rear end of your YJ or TJ, but it's also going to protect that steel underneath. Now with your factory spare tire carrier, it is very similar to your factory rear bumper. So it is a thinner metal, and if you do put a larger spare tire on here, it can wear out over time. Now the other big thing that I really like about this setup in comparison to the factory one is the fact that the mount that goes onto the spare tire carrier itself is fully adjustable. So you can adjust this in and out, and it can hold up to a 37-inch tire, which your spare tire carrier from the factory is just flat out unable to do. So you may get a little bit of adjustability out of this, but you really aren't getting much, and you aren't able to carry up to a 37-inch tire on your factory spare tire carrier. So the big difference between this two and why this is really a big upgrade for your YJ or TJ is the fact that this is going to be a bumper mounted tire carrier. So this is going to add all of that weight that was on the tailgate onto a frame mounted or bumper mounted system, which is going to preserve the life of your tailgate over time. So if you put an oversized tire on your factory spare tire carrier, what it's going to do is kind of sag your tailgate over time and damage and wear it out, as to where something like this, it's on a solid mounting point and it's not going to do that. So it is going to preserve the life of your tailgate and keep it functioning for a very long time. So enough about these two on the table. Let's go ahead and mount up our new system. So now we can go ahead and mount up our spare tire carrier. What I would recommend to do to preserve the life of this, to prevent any rusting on the post here, is just to add a little bit of grease, and then we can just slide the tire carrier onto the post there. Then what we can do is put on the cap and tighten down our Allen bolt that's going to keep that cap on there and protect the joint inside. I'm using a 6mm Allen key to tighten down this Allen head bolt. All right, once that's on there, we can move to mounting up our actual spare tire carrier mount. So what we can do now is bolt up our spare tire carrier mount. So we can add the 4 bolts that came pre-installed on the mount and secure them down with the flat washers and the nylon lock nut on the back. Once one is attached, it should stay in place for you. Then you can secure down the other 3. So now we can go ahead and tighten down all 4 bolts with an 18mm wrench and 19mm socket. So like I mentioned before, this is going to be adjustable since this is 2 pieces. So you are going to have 4 bolts, 2 on either side, that will tighten down to make sure that this stays in place. So I would recommend to measure for your tire size from the back of the wheel where it's going to mount up to this mount to the end of the tire. So after you've measured, we can find a good place for this. We picked about 7 inches, and then we're going to go ahead and tighten it down with an 18mm socket. So what we can do next is mount up our handle, making sure that this is facing the rear of the Wrangler. We can slide that into the tire carrier. So we're gonna grab the provided bolts, stick those through. So on the other side, we can attach our flat washer, lock washer, and nut. So you can go ahead and tighten them up with a 17mm wrench and socket. So in order to secure this down, the handle actually has to pass through this tab, and you may encounter the same issue that we are, and that's that this handle is hitting up against our license plate mount. Now this is made of plastic. What we can do is just trim this down, or if you are looking to relocate your license plate, you can also do that as well. But all we have to do is shave off a little bit of this license plate mount in order for this to fit and turn correctly. So what I'm gonna do is actually take off our license plate and the license plate mount, so we can just trim the corner here. So I'm going to use a 10mm socket to take out the 2 bolts that are holding in our license plate. So after your license plate is off, what you can do is take that same 10mm socket and remove the 4 bolts that are holding this to our Wrangler. So as you can tell, I made a mark on where our handle is interfering with our license plate mount. So what you can do is either take a body saw or whatever tool that you want to use in order to cut this plastic, and we can cut out a notch in our license plate mount. So after we have a notch cut out in our license plate bracket, what we can do is mount that back up. And we can mount back up our license plate. And we can close up our tailgate. So our last step is just to mount up our spare tire. And we can use that same 13/16 inch socket to tighten these up. So that's going to wrap it up for my review and install. Make sure you like and subscribe, and for more videos and products like this, always keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.